Guys, I've made a bunch of videos over the last few months about a couple of retro gaming handhelds. Of course, I've also made a ton of videos about my Valve Steam Deck, and there's this sort of in-between spot that I have not yet explored, and it is the world of Android handhelds. Okay, these things can be great for retro emulation, but they also leave that door open, being that they are running Android, for all manner of other applications like Android games, but also game streaming apps, so forth and so on. There are a great many of these now popping up as well, ranging from relatively inexpensive all the way up to like approaching the price where I would just say just go get a Steam Deck at that point. Today in this video, we're going to be looking at a brand new one, just now released, just arrived at my house, the Retroid Pocket Flip. Before we jump into any more of this, I just want to take a look at the GoRetroid.com website. This is what we're talking about here. It is $164, which is kind of in this nice in-between spot, right? It's a bit more than some of the retro handhelds I've already reviewed, but it's obviously a lot less than a Steam Deck, and it's less than some of the other Android handhelds. So in terms of an unboxing experience, this is pretty much what you can expect. It's not a super extravagant unboxing experience, but I think it's fine. It's good enough. You've got this sheet of paper here on top that has that nice little embossed logo. It's also got a full spec sheet and some information on the bottom. The device itself is next up. You can see mine is in that GameCube-esque indigo color, which I do like quite a bit. There are some other options there. It does also come with a USB-A to C cable, and that's about it. The device itself is obviously a clamshell device with two analog sliders instead of full analog sticks. I'm sure this is done to reduce the height to make this clamshell design work even better. And overall, I think that the thing looks quite nice in the hands. If we switch to the overhead camera here, we'll do a quick tour around the device. So you have a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack here, power button there, a single mono speaker there on the bottom, which sounds okay as far as I can tell. Keep in mind, this is not a review, this is a first impression, but so far I think it sounds okay. This is a spot over here that says TF card, and of course what this is a spot for expandable storage, although it does come with 128 gigs of eMMC storage on board. There is also active cooling on here, right? So if you want to actually turn on a fan, you can do that and lower the thermals, thereby potentially increasing the performance. Volume rocker there on the side, L1, R1, as well as L2 and R2. Now, these sticks are actually analog, so they should be able to detect how far they're being pressed. That is a very nice feature to have. I believe that is HDMI mini or whatever it is, micro, USB-C for charging, as well as data transfer, and then a couple of little programmable buttons there on the back to be made use however it is you want to make use of them. If we open the thing up here, we are looking at a 4.7-inch 750 by 1334 screen running at 60 hertz, and it goes up to 450 nits. It's fine. It's not the best screen I've ever seen, but it's going to do the job pretty well. Decently large bezels here on the side, but overall, I think it looks okay. In terms of the button layout, we have your pretty standard ABXY, a D-pad, start, select, and then these analog sliders, right? So I mentioned they're not sticks, they are sliders. They're very, very low profile, as you can see there, but you can actually click them in for L3 and R3. That is a really nice touch. The buttons themselves are not very clicky. This does feel like a membrane on the D-pad, does feel like a membrane over here as well. Whereas the shoulder buttons up here are definitely much more clicky. In terms of the specifications, this is a relatively common CPU for these retro handhelds. In fact, Retroid has used this same one in other devices, the Unisoc Tiger T618, and it's decent, right? This means you should be able to emulate up to some GameCube and PS2 games. Everything from their back should mostly be varying degrees of quite playable. Now, in terms of RAM, you've got 4 gigabytes of LPDDR4 RAM, 128 storage, like I said, Android 11, and a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. If we actually power it up, you can see that we have a pretty normal looking Android lock screen. I think you can swipe it away or hit the A button. And I'm using the AOSP launcher. There's a built-in like Retroid launcher that I've not done much with. I guess you can go in and set different programs to be in this row here. But like I said, I've just not done enough with it to really set that up yet. But from this, you can launch whatever Android apps you want. Of course, this stuff does have access to the Google Play Store. So you can install whatever you want to install. It is a little bit awkward to go from here to here. You have to totally shift your hand, but I don't think it's the end of the world. If you swipe down, you can see your Android controls, auto rotate, Bluetooth. There's even a fan control here, which you can turn that on and get the fan going. If I long press it, do I get any more controls? Doesn't seem like it. Although I did just find if you swipe down twice, you can actually change it between these different modes. Let's turn it on performance and listen to how loud this is. That is definitely a fairly loud sounding fan, kind of got a whine to it. But if we swipe down, you can see there's a few different things we can do here. Force landscape might be a good option. The ability to cast this thing with Chromecast. Let's go into the settings and see if there's anything interesting in here. Honestly, this looks like pretty standard Android stuff. Handheld settings. Power saving, clean process when in standby, background process limited. Connect TV, so turn off handheld screen. No auto sleep and force landscape when connected to a TV. That's all very smart, actually. Show current network speed up there. That's actually a pretty cool little touch as well. I'm not sure if I'm going to use that or not, but it might be good for testing, so we'll actually leave that on. You can actually change the input style, retro or Xbox. That might be good for certain games. Some different tests and so forth you can run there. Virtual mouse. Hold down 2 keys for 3 seconds to set shortcut keys. That did work. Okay, so L3 and R3 should enable and disable the virtual mouse. And it is with the left analog stick. That might come in handy, actually. We're going to leave that on. We're going to turn it off for now and go back to what we were doing. Google services, which you can enable very, very easily. And then some advanced settings like re-entering the setup wizard, which will allow you to install some of the suggested applications. So this is, I believe this is Vice City Stories, if I'm remembering correctly, running on a PSP emulator. And I've not really messed with the settings at all. I just basically loaded up the game, and it is running oh my lord, that was a fast forward button. Okay, found the fast forward button, guys. It's R2. It is running really, really well. In fact, you can go warp speed if you'd like to. The little analog sliders, I feel like, are working decently well. Honestly, better than I was kind of expecting it to. Obviously, this is a single analog stick game, so I'm gonna just smash into people's cars. So I'm only using one of them, but I mean, this is performing really quite well. Like this, I feel like PSP is going to be really, really solid on this thing. Let's check out some more stuff though. So we have jumped into Mupen 64, and it is grabbing all of the cover art for my various N64 games, and it did a great job of doing that. So let's jump into one now. Let's do one that is kind of difficult for these games to, for these emulators, I should say, to run. How about Perfect Dark? We're loading into this first level, and this is going to be awkward just because it's an N64 game and the controls were super weird. I'm assuming that this is going to map to the C stick, and it is, of course, inverted. So that's going to make things all the more awkward for me. But what I will say is, I mean, it seems like it's running really well. Did the C6 strafe as well? Is that how that worked? I wonder if I could map this. Which button shoots? There it is. It's the left trigger. So that one needs to be remapped as well. I wonder if I could map the C stick though in such a way that it would almost act like a proper second analog stick. Possibly. At any rate though, this is running really, really well, right? Like no problems at all. Totally playable, which means, oh, sir, excuse me. Means I feel like N64 is going to be pretty solid with this thing, guys. But I'm almost more excited about some of the other stuff that you can do besides N64, right? You have access to the Play Store, which does not seem like it wants to go away. Even force closing, it did not work. For some reason, it's just, it refuses. Maybe rebooting will fix that. But at any rate, you have the Play Store, which means you can install, like, whatever. So let's jump into PUBG Mobile. And there's this little side control thing here with screen mapping. You're supposed to be able to basically map your controls to the touch controls on a game to basically give any game that doesn't have touch controls. So let's get into that and check this out. Now we have to get past the billion things to be able to actually get into the gift sent. No, can I just Lobby, is that where I need to go? Great. Okay, awesome. Nope, more stuff? Cool. Oh, more stuff. Great, awesome. I've left the settings just as they were. I downloaded the HD texture pack and so forth. What I want to figure out here is how well these controls will map to the controls on the screen. It appears I just swipe out from over here and I do screen mapping. Does that toggle it? Great, that toggles it. So key mapper is probably what I need to do. Okay, so I think I just drag it on screen. So like, that's the left stick, and that is allowing me to move. Okay, so then what we need is another stick like here. Okay, definitely some weird stuff happening with the right stick. So we're gonna have to get on the ground and see if we can figure out what is going on there. We're gonna land in an area that's kind of like uninhabited, I guess, and then we'll see if we can move into a town after that. Okay, so we've got a gun now. So I think what I can do is just map a button down here to shoot. Oh, I just clicked the button. Now that is mapped to R2. Okay, so then we can bring this down here and make that B for reload. So we're really close here. That's working to shoot the gun. I can reload. I can jump. I can crouch. I can prone. The only thing that's getting weird here is the right analog stick. It's just not quite working. Okay, so I think I figured out you have to actually go into this and change it between these different modes. Adjust view mode is the one that's working for PUBG. I've had to lower the sensitivity a ton, but now I'm feeling pretty okay about this actually. I kind of have it fairly slow, but I feel like I have to. Like it's a little awkward. I'm not a controller user in general, so for shooters. So yeah, this is just kind of what we're doing now. Let's see if I can go get a kill real quick. I think I heard a vehicle drive up a minute ago. I can feel this thing getting a bit warmer. I've actually been working on this for a while trying to figure out how to do this. All right, I heard some shooting coming from directly in front of me here, so hopefully I can encounter some people we can test to see how well this is working. Honestly, I feel like it's working pretty well already, but I would like to test it out against either some people or some... Oh, yeah, I'm dead. He saw me coming from a mile away, and that's what I get. That's what I get. But at any rate, I mean, that is working pretty well, and you could do that with any game that you can think of that doesn't necessarily have native controller support. Well, you could give it controller support. And I want to test one more thing, or kind of show you one more thing before we close this video. Let's jump into the Game Pass application, and I'll show you how well this works, because it's actually really, really cool. So I pay for Game Pass Ultimate, which means that I can stream Xbox games, and that actually works great here. Let's go over to Cloud, and we'll jump into a game that I keep testing out, but never actually spend any significant time playing, Tunic. But this should give us a good look in terms of how the controls are working, what kind of latency that we are dealing with here. All right, so how do you play Tunic? Okay, so the first thing is the stick is obviously working. You can see what kind of latency we're getting there. It is there. There is a bit of a delay, but it's not too crazy. Let's see here if I go get into some trouble, if the latency affects me in any way. So let's fight these things, and I can dodge. Sorry, it's hard to keep this stuff centered while you're playing it. I mean, look, that's absolutely playable. It maybe isn't the best experience in the world, but you're getting the ability to play games that this system, this handheld, otherwise just would not be able to play, and it's a lot of games, right? And then you can also use something like Moonlight to stream games from your own home computer over to this thing, and by doing that, you're going to reduce the latency by a ton, because it's not going over the internet. It's going to be on your local network. I think that's where we're going to leave things for this first impressions. I got a lot more testing to do of higher end games like GameCube emulation and things like that for the full review. Drop any questions you have in the comments down below. I'll try to answer as many of them as I can in that full review. I'll also drop a link to purchase this in the description down below. I believe it's only available on their own website, which means it is not an affiliate link. If somehow I do find an Amazon link, assume that probably is an affiliate link, which will help support the channel. I think overall, my first impressions are quite strong. This thing is very portable. You could put this in a back pocket very, very easily. It's a little bit on the chunky side, right? But I mean, so are every other little handheld like this. And you compare it to something like the Steam Deck, yeah, it's definitely in another world in terms of portability. With the ability to stream games and play emulators, anything that's in the Play Store, you're gonna be able to play on this thing. Even games that aren't meant to use controls, you can use controls on. So overall, first impressions, pretty strong. You're gonna want to subscribe for the full review. They're probably coming in a few days or so. Guys, I will see you on the next one. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.